Hi, this is Michael Rubin, and we've been talking about modes. So I'm going to list the 7 modes of the major scales. Now, probably today I'm just going to get through 3 or 4. So the first mode we've already touched on. If you had a C major scale, this would be the mode that starts and ends on C. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And it sounds like Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. It's the exact same scale. And it's called the Ionian mode, I-O-N-I-A-N. And it creates happy sounding music. So I'm going to set up a C major chord to loop on my backing track. And I'm going to get my C harmonica. And I'm not going to play any notes that are not in the C major scale. So I'm going to play all white notes on the keyboard, all my blow notes, all my draw notes, and 2 double bend, 3 double bend, and 10 single bend. And that's all I'm going to play. Here I go. It's going to create a happy feeling. Okay. The second mode is if you were to start on the second note of the major scale. So in the case of the C major scale, that would be D, and this mode is called Dorian. Now it's coincidental that the D note and the Dorian scale both begin with the letter D, but it makes it nice and easy to remember. So the notes would be D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, or if you take a G major scale and started on the second note, it would be A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, or you take any major scale and start on the second note and tell the band to play in the key that has the same name as your new root. So, or new tonic. So, somebody told me the other day, scales have tonics and chords have roots. I've always just used those words interchangeably. So, maybe I'm wrong. So, the Dorian scale has 2 flavors. One of the flavors is a sad flavor or a minor flavor. So I'm going to change my backing track to use the chord D minor 7 and just loop on that chord. And I'm going to continue to play the same notes on my C harp. And it will sound sad. Now, that same mode also sounds good for blues. So, if I'm on stage with a blues band and they say, let's play a blues in the key of D, they're not signifying a minor blues, they mean a major blues. But this scale, the Dorian scale, is going to work well. And if they said a D minor blues, it would also work well. So I'm going to play the exact same notes, but I'm going to change my backing track to have a D7 or a D dominant 7th chord as my loop. Here I go. Should sound bluesy. So if that sounded reminiscent of something that a lot of blues harmonica players will play in 3rd position, that's because the D Dorian scale is one of the main scales that people pull notes from to play blues in 3rd position. Same thing on a chromatic. Have you ever seen a guy play blues all night on diatonic and then he pulls out the chromatic and he really does a good job and you say, wow, this guy really knows how to play chromatic? Maybe not. Maybe he turned to the band and said, play a blues in the key of D, took his chromatic, did not push in the button, left the button out, thereby playing only white notes from the keyboard, thereby playing the notes from the D Dorian scale, which will create a bluesy feeling in the key of D major. So here I go again, blues in D, using a chromatic. The third mode is called Phrygian, P-H-R-Y-G-I-A-N, and it would be, if you're taking the notes from the C major scale, starting on the third note, C, D, E, so the notes E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. It sounds good for flamenco music, for Middle Eastern style music, and for some jazz. Now, if you are not playing those three types of music, you may want to consider being aware of the Phrygian scale but not practicing it that much, because in what I call pop music, American music besides jazz and classical, such as blues, country, folk, rock, reggae, punk, etc., it is very unusual when you will be called to play using the Phrygian scale. So if you want to approach music from a Gestalt perspective, Gestalt meaning looking at the whole picture, go ahead and study your Phrygian scales. But if you just want to play American music besides jazz and classical, you may consider not really studying Phrygian. So I'm going to set my backing track to an E minor 7 chord, and I'm going to get my C harp and play all the white notes in E Phrygian. So, the last one I want to talk about today is called Lydian. It's L-Y-D-I-A-N. It would be the fourth mode, so if you were using the C major scale, the note F, so F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. If you were using the G major scale, the note C, so C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. Lydian creates a jazzy feeling, and it is also used quite often in scary music, scary movies, just before it really gets scary. So it's starting to feel a little scary. It has kind of a floaty feeling. I also think that if you're not playing jazz or scary sounding music, that Lydian is kind of useless in most pop music. However, some people disagree with me. There are people who use Lydian in pop music. In my opinion, they are wasting their energy. And I'll explain why. Let's first think about, because they're thinking about it like a jazz player, let's think about how a jazz song is often approached by jazz players. So in jazz music there will often be a song with lots of chords. Let's say you have a chord every bar, or 2 chords per bar. So let's say 1 chord for 4 beats, or as little as 2 beats. So in a lot of jazz songs there will be anywhere from 32 to 64 chords being played in the middle of the song. That's a lot of chords. So what jazz players do to handle it is they assign scales, not all jazz players, but lots of them, they assign scales for each chord type. So let's say you have 2 chord types, major and minor. Now the reality is there's lots of different chord types. These are just 2 of them, but it's a good example. Let's say you're playing a song and along comes a D major chord. The jazz player would say, well, the major chord type suggests that I play the major scale. It's a D major chord. I will use the notes from the D major scale for as long as this chord is being played. As along comes an E major chord, I will play the E major scale as long as this chord is being played. If a D minor chord came along, I'd use a D minor scale for that chord. Now let's say the song is in the key of C. Along comes a D major chord within the song in the key of C. Now a pop player would continue using notes from the C major scale, But a jazz player would say, okay, during this chord, I'm going to play the notes from the D major scale. For the length of time that this chord is being played, I will play notes that relate to this chord, not the key of the song. So jazz players sometimes play pop music. And let's say you're playing a very simple song and the chords are C major and F major. To a jazz player, in the key of C, a C major chord suggests the C major scale, and the F major chord suggests the F Lydian scale. So he'll be playing the C major scale during the C chord. The band will change to the F major chord, and he'll think, F major chord in the key of C, this suggests the F Lydian scale. I will play the F Lydian scale. But because the F Lydian scale is a mode of the C major scale, the notes that he's playing are exactly the same. He just thinks about it in a different way. In my opinion, it is one thought too many. It's just a waste of time. Just keep thinking about it like you're in the C major scale. Now, when that F major chord comes around, to say there are notes in that chord. The F major chord are 3 notes, F, A, and C. I will play the C major scale, but I will focus on the notes F, A, and C. I think that's a good idea and well worth your energy. But to switch to F Lydian when it's the same scale you've been playing all the time, I think it's a little ridiculous. So, go ahead and argue with me, please. So I'm going to change my backing track to an F major 7 chord, which is a good chord for F Lydian. I got my C harmonica, and I'm playing the notes from the C major scale, starting and ending on F. Okay, so next time the other 3 modes, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. I will see you soon. Thanks very much. Goodbye.